What's up, YouTube? It's me, your boy Squiddy, back in another video. I realized that there's actually a card that a lot of people are looking past in the extra deck, especially with this format coming up, and it's actually this card, Blackluster Soldier, Soldier of Chaos. So this is a card that I guess was sort of popular when it first came out because of the fact that it was actually like an untargetable towers type effect that's easily accessible through your extra deck. And now that people have kind of sort of forgotten it, I've realized that it's actually really, really easy to make, especially with a lot of the more prevalent cards being level 7 or higher, especially the Kashtira. And with Photon Hypernova coming out, there are a lot of new cards like Kashtira Tearlament, which can make this really, really easily and then give you that Dragoon-like towers effect where it's protected. So for those of you that don't know, this is a generic Link 3 Earth Warrior with 3000 attack, and it requires 3 monsters with different names. And then the effect is if this card was link summoned using a level 7 or higher monster's material, your opponent cannot target it with the card effects. Also, it cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. So it's similar to the Dragoon effect. Like, it cannot be targeted, cannot be destroyed. You have to sort of get rid of it by a non-targeting banish. And then the other effect is when this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can activate one of these effects as a trigger effect. This card gains 1500 attack. That's the first option. Option 2 is this card can make a second attack during the battle phase of your next turn. And then third option is banish one card on the field. So obviously when you're making this on your turn, chances are you're going to be able to immediately swing over a monster because 3k is pretty big. So the goal of this card is, especially when you're going second, you make this, you swing over something, you gain 1500 attack, so it goes to 4500. And then actually in the metagame, there's basically nothing that can really get rid of it. And then from there, you can kind of take over the game because on your following turn, you can attack again and then make it gain another 1500. You can start banishing cards on the field, non-targeting, by the way. Or you could make a second attack on the following turn so you can kind of go for that game shot. And the second attack, you can also attack directly twice. So it's kind of like the traditional BLS. It's not kind of like the new monsters where they can only make a second attack on monsters. This can just straight up attack twice. So you can either end the game a couple turns later or just start banishing things and picking apart your opponent's field. And I guess, like, the biggest thing is it's easily made with Tearlament's Kashtira or Fenrir. There are not a lot of outs besides Triple Tactics Talent, which you can actually play around by not activating any monster effects during your opponent's following main phase. Because if they have no way to get rid of this, what's the point of activating your monster effects, right? You can just have him chill on the board, and he's kind of just like, your opponent's just staring at them, figuring out a way to deal with it, maybe making a bunch of plays and trying to bait out something for the tactics to be live. But aside from like making a Zeus, which is also very hard when this is the only monster on the table, they literally have to make 2 XYZ monsters, crash one, and then make Zeus with the other one, and then also wipe any sort of board that they've already set up while using the resources. So it's either like, it's a win-win for you because if they manage to make a Zeus with 2 XYZ monsters in whatever deck, it's hard for me to even think of a deck that can do that right now because tier limits have been nerfed. Previously, it was already hard for them as is, but they could still kind of do it with like some mixture of extenders by the Shizu monsters, like a Kaldo special summon, then a Shirin, and then maybe like a using Kikellos to summon a Rhino, and then normal summoning a level 4 to make 2 level 4 XYZs to go into a Zeus after crashing. But like, it's also awkward for them because when they crash the monster, you actually get the effect of Blackluster Soldier, Soldier of Chaos as a trigger effect. So you can either banish a card on the field, make a second attack, or gain 1500 attack. So when they're doing that, they cannot have another level 4 or another level on the field, or else you can just banish that so they cannot make Zeus's easily. So it's very awkward for them to get rid of it. And then I guess the only other thing that easily gets rid of this is probably like Tri-Brigade Shirag because it's a non-targeting banish, or Mirror Jade, which I guess might see some play because branded cards have not really been hit. They're sort of getting some new support and might be popular. So those are the only cards that can really deal with it off the top of my head. So maybe it's not something you want to immediately summon against those matchups because Mirror Jade can easily take care of it. But if you have something like an Imperm or a Veiler or anything to sort of deal with that Mirror Jade on the turn that he's trying to use the effect, that's really good for you to still make this because they cannot get rid of it. And then on the following turn, you can either crash over it, use the effect to banish, and then it's still protected in the end phase. It cannot be destroyed by card effects, right? So the Mirror Jade triggering in the effect to blow up in the main phase would not affect this monster. So I just think that this is something that a lot of people are grazing past, especially if you're playing like pure Kashtira. You have a lot of you have a lot of space in your side in your extra deck, so you can actually go into this. Obviously, you want to do this before you play Theosis or use the effect of Rise Heart because then you lock yourself into XYZs. But it's very easy to make this, with some combination of Fenrir, the field spell, or like Birth being able to reborn a monster, and then you normal summon again, and then you can make this, and then you can kind of sort of dominate the game by using this. It's also a lot easier if you're playing the adventure package. So if you're playing cards like the Fateful Adventure, you know, like to make the tokens, and then you can also use the Griffin as well if you happen to have extenders like that. So like Wander Griffin Rider, the Water Enchantress as well, and then also Right. Obviously, this card doesn't need to have effect monsters. It just needs 3 monsters with different names. So you can actually use the Rite of Aramis token as well to make it. And yeah, it's for me, it's just like I think if you look at this, you have a lot of cards. You have Fenrir, you have Unicorn, you know, obviously all the Kashtira's. Tearlament's Kashtira, if you're playing some mixture of like a Tearlament's deck still utilizing this card because this is like one of the main Tearlaments that are still at 3 that allow you to mill a card. And you can also use tactics to steal your opponent's bigger monsters. So if your opponent has like a Rook Kalos, which is still seeing play surprisingly in this format because of the cards like King of the Swamp that allow you to substitute for Rook Kalos or Kick Kalos to go into Rook Kalos. So if you go to tactics or even play triple tactics thrust to access change of heart or tactics or mind control, you can steal like a bigger monster that your opponent's controlling and then go into the BLS. So same thing with the adventures that we mentioned before. And it's just really nice option to have your extra deck to be able to go into that and potentially win an unwinnable game because your opponent doesn't really realize it. And if they do know that you're playing it, the only time that they have to kind of interrupt is when you have 3 monsters on the board, including a level 7 or higher monster. So it kind of forces them to make their negations before you commit to a play. So let's say they like use Mirror Jade or something to get rid of, or another monster, I guess, to get rid of one of your monsters before you can go into BLS. Probably not Mirror Jade because they can just get rid of the BLS, but you get my point. So you can, from there, just make your other plays unimpeded because you haven't really invested anything into, you know, like going into a link right away. So it kind of forces them to use that activation before you go into the link, just to threat the existence of that card. So I really want to talk about that. It's also a really good option if you guys are going to YCS Mexico or YCS Leon because tier limits are at full power, and it's just really, really easy to go into this card. This is one of the cards that we were actually testing for YCS Vegas because of the fact that you can easily make it with tier limits Kashtira in the tier limits at full power. But now that the ban list is hit and nuke tiers, it's kind of harder to see that, but there's still other decks like Pure Kashtira and then Tearlament's Kashtira in whatever deck that you're making, or again, like using tactics to steal a big monster. So you can go into this. So yeah, I just want to make a really quick video on the Black Luster Soldier, Soldier of Chaos. If you guys have any tips on how we can make this easier or like any ways to out this, because I'm sure like a lot of people might actually catch on and start playing this, definitely let me know. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Deuces.